Bryan Cranston, welcome back to the podcast.
It's so nice to see you.
How are you? You're looking very scruffy these days. Well, you've got a big beard going. What's that about?
You know, it's about, I'm doing a second season of Your Honor for Showtime.
Right, which did incredibly well, by the way. I loved Your Honor, but I read recently it was like one of the biggest shows on Showtime in a long time.
Yeah, they tell us it was the highest rated series they've ever had.
Wow.
So that's pretty good. And so they wanted to do another one, and I said, I'd like to do another season, but only if we follow in an honest, authentic way where that character would go.
Because it seems to me, with all due respect, Mr. Cranston, that this series did not exactly lend itself to a second series. I mean, things tied up pretty neatly, very traumatically, I might add. Yeah. I don't want to spoiler alerts here, but I don't want any spoilers here. But I had a hard time when I heard there was going to be a second season. I thought, how are you going to do that?
How are they going to do that? I thought the same thing because it ended tragically, which is not the wrong way to end that first season. And then I thought, well, if the first season was about a man losing his sense of principles and dignity and integrity, can the second season be about redemption? And I think our society is yearning for that.
That's a good
point,
actually.
Trying to understand, where does forgiveness exist in our society now? It seems so coarse. It seems so vitriolic, We've had people who have been leading this country who believe that forgiveness and apology are signs of weaknesses in the human character. And I don't believe that. I believe it's actually a strength.
And in fact, you've been pretty vocal, if I recall, about sort of cancel culture, haven't you?
Yeah.
Haven't you? Did you get in a little hot water about that, Bryan?
Well, you know what happened? I was doing a play in London, and I had a film coming out. So the BBC wanted to do an interview with me, and I said, okay. And they said they're going to want you to talk about President Trump. And I said, okay. And they're going to want to talk about the Me Too movement. I said, okay. All of which, it's a wake-up call in many regards for both of those issues. The question came to me, do you think that Kevin Spacey can resurrect his career? And I was taken aback a little bit about that directness. And then I realized the association. The BBC is asking that because Kevin Spacey was the artistic director of the Old Globe, not the Old Globe, of the Old Vic Theater, right? And I said, I don't think so. But if he does a lot of personal work on himself, if he really goes into therapy and really gets to the root of what was causing this behavior of his, and not in a 2-month dude ranch kind of thing in Colorado, but a real earnest attempt to figure things out. And if he showed genuine contrition, maybe in 5 to 10 years, society would accept him back if he did all that work.
And you got pummeled for that.
I did. We were in a redlining situation at the time where they thought I was trying to defend him, but really I was trying to look at a bigger picture of our society.
Right.
Where does it all fit? And so when this idea to possibly do a second season of Your Honor came along, I thought, I think this might help people who live in despair and in pain. How do they cope? How can they find a pathway to the rest of their lives? And I think it's a service. You personally went through it yourself. You had to figure out a path to get through so that you can be strong again. And I marvel at your ability to be able to do that.
You mean from the death of my husband?
Yeah.
I think also this sort of public shaming, which I didn't experience, but but certainly many high-profile figures have. Sometimes it's definitely warranted, but I think you're right. At what point can there be or should there be redemption? And I don't know the answer to that, but I think that's such a topic that's so ripe for exploration. And getting back to Your Honor, for people who haven't seen the first series, and I urge them to do so they can see the second series when it comes out, can you just basically give us the nutshell of this character? Because I found him so fascinating.
Michael Desiator is a Superior Court judge in New Orleans, Louisiana. He has a 17-year-old son, and his wife was a photojournalist who was murdered a year earlier. Through a course of the remembrance of the day that she passed, my son, who was distraught and is an asthmatic, gets into a car accident, and he hits a young boy on a motorcycle. He panics and leaves the scene of the accident, almost immediately feeling guilty and realizing he's made a mistake. And he confesses to me, his father, what happened. And after receiving that devastating news and dealing with that by itself, I convey to him that we need to do the right thing. We need to turn you in and be responsible, because if you don't do that now, you will forever be damaged by that decision.
Right.
So I go to turn him in to the police, and I'm going to hire a lawyer for him and see how things end up. And what happens is that at the police station, I notice the parents of the boy who died in that car accident, and they are part of the most violent and dangerous mob in all of Louisiana. And I know, or at least I feel I know, that man, if he found out my son killed his son, he would go and kill my son within the structure of the court system. So I make an immediate decision not to turn my son in. From that point on,
everything unravels.
It unravels.
And you get deeper and deeper. It's not the lie, or it's not the crime, it's the cover-up. And I found the character so fascinating because of all these sort of ethical lapses and how one leads to another, to another, to another. And I don't know, I'm obsessed with characters who are guilt-ridden. I don't know if you remember that movie, Bob Roberts, I think it was called.
Mm-hmm.
And it was that Tim Robbins?
Tim Robbins, yeah.
And I think he commits a crime. And the idea of doing something and being, like, having to hide that and feel this overwhelming, overflowing guilt. I have nightmares about that. I don't know why those characters, I think that's my biggest fear. Like, not doing something wrong, but having to hide it.
Yeah, because you feel like you'll be exposed.
Yes, of course.
And but when you think about it, that's one of the wonderful things about human beings, is that we do carry guilt. And we do have that because we are not made to that. We're social animals. We want to strive to do what is best. I really believe that. And when we explore in this season of Your Honor the idea that my character is going through despair and grief, I think it's a valuable thing and the movement that he makes, I had to really convince the people at Showtime. It's like, trust me, I think this will work. But I also.
So you wanted to do it?
Oh yeah, yeah.
You wanted to do it.
Well, I wanted to do that. If
they weren't saying to you, this show did so well, we need a second season.
They did.
Yeah.
And I said, I will do a second season if I can do this with that character.
Got it.
But otherwise, I don't have to do another one.
Now, how is Michael, and I'm sure you've been asked this, but it's not going to keep me from asking it too, Bryan, but how is Michael different from Walter White, and are there similarities in their characters? Because they are sort of, at their core, good people who, because of circumstances, become bad people.
Yeah. Well, I think what Walter White taught me is that nothing is black and white. Pardon the pun, but there's a lot of gray area. I don't think human beings are just one thing. We have good qualities and we have bad qualities. We have things about us that we're proud of and things that I need to improve in this area. Hopefully they're not criminal, but that's human beings. The common denominator is that Michael Desiator and Walter White were played by the same person, so there's always going to be a through line of that.
Does Michael wear tidy whities?
He does not. He does not.
He's a boxer.
He's a boxer. He's a boxer man. Yeah. But the difference is that the attempts, we want to see characters attempting to do the right thing at the best of their ability. But if they're damaged and troubled people, men in this case, then they may not be capable of doing the right thing at the right time always.
And it's always about sort of how one bad decision can change everything in an instant. You've said you're attracted to damaged characters who still have some manner of humanity and decency within them, despite their flaws and shortcomings. So I guess that does describe Michael and Walter.
I think those are the kinds of characters I get offered, is to play really damaged men.
And you're such a nice guy. How is that?
Well, I can relate. I mean, I'm human.
You are human, but I mean, I don't know you that well, but I would say you're incredibly decent and morally upstanding individual. I feel like you have certain values that you adhere to, and you've got, I don't know, and you heretofore have played pretty wholesome characters prior to Breaking Bad. So, how come we're just now seeing the darker side of Bryan Cranston emerge?
Well, when you think of it from a standpoint of a dramatic narrative, the most interesting things to play are damaged people. We don't want to see in our dramas, we don't want to see people do all the right things all the time. They would never make it into a show or a movie.
Right.
Because it's not interesting. So there's going to be a turn. There's going to be problems in that person's life that they are either capable or incapable of overcoming. And that's what makes drama so fascinating.
You're the happy beneficiary of this national obsession, I think, with crime and sort of thrillers and whodunit. And I'm curious what you think about that whole trend, because everything seems to either be based on true crime or a fictionalized version of some kind of terrible event.
Well, I know I am more interested in the human element of it, and whether that takes me in the genre of crime or medical or whatever the main areas of interest are. I'm always interested in the story. Does the story resonate with me? And so you look at Breaking Bad, and Breaking Bad was a story of a man's plight and struggle through this horrific prognosis of a limited life, and he wanted to set his family up for after he's gone. And so he elicited a lot of sympathy for that. Yeah, it's just his decision making, and also an indictment of the health system that a fully employed teacher needs to have a second job in order to pay for the special needs son and his care. So and then you have Your Honor, which had the concept of what would you do to save the life of your child. And if you ask any parent, it's like, I would do anything. To save the life of my child, I would do anything. And I ask people, would you willingly become a criminal if you knew that by doing so you would save the life of your child? Yes, I would. Okay, then we take it a step further. Would you allow an innocent person to be hurt or killed in the line of saving your, and then all of a sudden, oh, you can't go back. My character can't retrace his steps and clean it up and make good on something. His spiral already started, and he is in this mess. And that's what, to echo your point, is that we have to try to make the best decisions at that time that you can. And my character didn't have the luxury of thinking, what are the repercussions of this initial decision?
I remember that scene where he's watching the family. I think he was in the parking lot. Yeah. Michael was, and he thought he made that split-second decision. Nope, this isn't going to happen. We're not going to do the right thing. And the rest of the series obviously unfolds, and he gets deeper and deeper and deeper into, lie begets lie begets lie.
Yeah.
I loved the series, and I think it was critically acclaimed. I think it got a lot of nice reviews, but you don't read reviews ever, 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 ever?
I did up until about 7-8 years ago, when I read a couple reviews about a movie that I did that I thought was, that's not helpful to me.
What movie was it?
Well, I don't want to throw this reviewer under the bus.
Oh, go ahead. We like to do that here on Next Question. We like to throw people under the bus. Come on, Bryan.
I don't
Especially, it sounds like this person may deserve it.
Yeah, because this person was lazy and claimed certain things that an easy little research into it, and this person would have found, oh, I'm wrong about that and about this. And so I found the laziness of that to be irritating. And I also realized, and so I said, I don't think reading reviews helps me at all. And so I don't read reviews on when I do a Broadway show or when I do a movie, because it's not going to change anything. And I actually, most people are saying you could have 9 great reviews and 1 bad one, and the one you're going to think about most is the bad one.
Isn't it true, no matter how many things you've done and how many times you've been reviewed or critiqued, it still hurts, I think, when people say mean things about you. Are you on Twitter, by the way?
Well,
are you leaving Twitter?
I'm not. I'm not active on it.
You're not active,
no.
But do you want to stay on it?
I haven't really given it much thought. I certainly, my whole point, I long for the chance once again to have a respectful, logical disagreement with someone who's more conservative than I am. I'm more liberal, but I want to have that debate again and not lose respect for each other, knowing that we're both trying to get to an accomplishment that benefits the country. That's the goal. We've kind of lost that.
I think we've been conditioned not to want it, given the kind of discourse or lack thereof that is everywhere. It's almost a sign, just as compromise on Capitol Hill is a sign of weakness, compromise or even calm discussion seems to be a sign of weakness, openness, kind of willingness to listen. It has all been kind of, I think, I don't know. People just don't want to do it.
I agree with you, and what I was saying earlier, same thing. Asking forgiveness, apologizing, signs of weakness. I think that goes along with that our country has become coarser and harder. And I think if we can contribute anything to this, is to be able to try to break down that kind of calloused attitude and dogma, and be able to step back in and saying, let's have a respectful debate on what is best for our society, our country, our state, our city, or whatever the case.
Yeah, good luck with that. I mean, wouldn't it be nice? It's funny because I posted something not too long ago, a very fun. Someone sent me a really funny photo. I think it was from 1989 by the looks of the big block cell phone the cameraman or producer was using. It was Britt Hume standing next to me, looking like he smelled like, I know, a rhinoceros fart. I don't like that word. Poot, flatulence, whatever. Making the funniest expression I posted. I said, I don't know where this was taken or when, but Britt Hume was definitely just not that into me, kind of as a joke.
Yeah.
And people got the joke. And then some people just wrote the meanest things. And I was like, it's Thanksgiving, everybody. Can you chill out? But it's almost like being mean and snarky, and how mean can you be has become sort of the goal. It's very strange.
Well, it's the bravado of anonymity.
Yeah.
If these people were in this room at this point, I doubt that they would say what they say.
Of course they wouldn't. And in fact, someone even said, I don't know how you two tolerate all the mean comments. And I think I wrote something like, well, I either ignore them or I look at the profile for perspective. Because usually the profiles are like, you know, have Confederate flags or they have 7 followers, and I look at the stuff that they've been tweeting and I like, okay, this makes sense.
I'm on the other end of that, where I go, I'm not interested in what others have to say in that sense. If they want to take a stand on just being mean-spirited, not interested. I won't even read it. And I think that goes along with the same about not reading reviews, good or bad.
Yeah.
I think my whole point, I want to see if I can help bring the country together with less divisiveness and more spirit of unity. That would be great. When I see people who have integrity, and I want to meet them, I want to talk to them. It doesn't matter what side of the aisle they happen to be on.
I know you don't read reviews, Bryan, but I did want to read this letter from Anthony Hopkins because it was so lovely, and it just made me like Anthony Hopkins even more than I already do. He wrote that your performance as Walter, his performance, I guess this was to you, right?
Yeah.
Your performance as Walter White was the best acting I have seen ever. I have never watched anything like it. Brilliant. I know there's so much smoke blowing and sickening bullshit in this business, and I've sort of lost belief in anything, really. But this work of yours is spectacular, absolutely stunning. From what started as a black comedy descended into a labyrinth of blood, destruction, and hell. It was like a great Jacobean, Shakespearean, or Greek tragedy. When you read that, obviously you read that. He he delivered it, or he had it sent to your house.
Yeah, it was. I was actually in Boston at the time doing the out of town version of All the Way, and
the play you did about LBJ,
right? And we had just closed that show there, and I got this letter that was forwarded from. We have the same agent. And so it was forwarded from the agent, and I read it, and I went, "Oh my God!" But I am not the one to want to make these things public, and I didn't intend to make this public. But he gave praise to not just me, but the whole cast, and I felt I wanted to share that with the cast, and I should have said, "Please don't put this out on social media." I did not think in those terms, and I sent it to my cast and say, "I think you all should read this. Isn't it?"
Lovely.
So lovely and mind-blowing. And then someone within our cast put it out on social media, and it went everywhere. And that wasn't the intention. I actually cringe a little bit because I would have rather have been just a private moment.
Well, having said that, what a nice gesture and what beautiful words. And
coming from one of the best actors to ever live.
And is there so much smoke blowing and sickening bullshit in your business?
Please. You're saying that rhetorically, aren't you?
Yeah. How do you deal with sort of the bullshit of showbiz?
Same way you do. You create.
I'm not in show business.
What do you mean you're not in show business? Of course you are.
Well,
you're in show business.
I mean,
Your
let's say
job is to entertain, and you do. You entertain, you inform. I get your newsletter every morning.
Aw, thank
And
you, Bryan.
Yes. I
And
read
you open it, more importantly.
I do. I read it all the time. And it's informative and entertaining. We're all in the business of entertainment. When you think about it, whether you're creating a service or a product, we're in entertainment. And I think the way to manage it, and what I tell young actors or writers or directors, people want to be in the business, get your personal life in order. Get that straight. Make sure that you love the work and not the idea of some effect of some result.
The fame.
Yes, you're not. Don't look ahead at like I'm out to get fame and fortune, because that's
a fool's errand, isn't it?
It is, because I wouldn't know how to approach that. Just focus on what you do and what you love to do, and if you're meant to get anything from that, it will happen. So I'm, just have a.
I think you've. Again, I'm acting like I've known you since you were 5, but it seems to me that you are very grounded and you really have never lost perspective per se. Also, you were a successful actor, but your huge sort of success came later in life.
Yeah, I think that was a benefit because, I've been married for 34 years now.
Lovely Robin.
Lovely Robin, and we have a very good life, but it's very, very normal. And I remember when I was on Malcolm in the Middle and I was nominated for an Emmy, and we go to the Emmys, and I'm in my tuxedo, and everybody, Bryan, and taking pictures with Robin and I, and we get in the limo, and we're on the red carpet, and it's all fancy, Hollywood schmollywood, and we go home, and I pay the babysitter and say goodnight, and Robin walks into the kitchen and turns her nose and goes, "Oh my God, what's that?" And she discovers there's something stinky in the garbage. And she just picks up the plastic garbage bag and shoves it in my hands. And I don't say a word because that's my job.
Yeah.
And I open the back door and it's starting to drip. Something is really bad in here. And I'm holding the dripping garbage, smelly garbage bag out at arm's length so it doesn't drip on my tuxedo. And I'm walking out to the garbage and I realize, not 20 minutes ago, people were, "Please, picture, let me take a picture. Will you have an autograph?" And now I'm taking smelly garbage and I smiled because that's it. That's the reality of it. That's real life. That's tangible. It's right there, smelly garbage and all. And that's what I want to embrace. I want to embrace the reality of life. And if you can create a foundation of that, then you have room to dream and go and take chances. But because you always have, you're kind of like an invisible tether to something that's real.
And that's why you should get sort of your personal life in order, because that is really what matters. That's what counts.
It does.
And I think for so many young people who experience fame at a very early age, we see how destructive and toxic it is. And now, I don't know, we live in a culture where everybody can be famous on social media for one thing or another. And I worry about the impact it has on young people and sort of getting, and I experienced this myself. I think you get endorphins from external validation and affirmation, and the idea that their sense of self is predicated upon the number of likes or the followers. It's a very unhealthy, I think, recipe for living life as a healthy, kind of grounded person.
It's an extremely unhealthy way of life, I think, from our perspective. People of a certain age, looking back, we didn't have that when we were young. What do we do? How do we help this generation and the younger generations to come to realize what is really important to them? I think, it used to be where if you weren't invited to a party and Monday morning you heard there was a party, oh, that's kind of a bummer. I wasn't invited, which happens to me. But now it's instantaneous. That party is happening right now because you're seeing
Right,
real-time
of course,
pictures
yeah.
that you are not there. That is devastating to young, formidable minds.
Yeah,
you
listen,
know?
I'm glad, even though they're still only 26 and 31, I feel really bad for parents who are having to deal with it, and I think they just need to take it away. Take it away and have hours where they can be on their phones. But we digress, Bryan. We digress. Let's talk about your mezcal company, and I want to know what else kind of you're excited about these days. Are you going to do well before we talk about mezcal? And I have a confession to make.
I know what your confession is.
I don't like mezcal.
I know that. The last time we had dinner, we were having mezcal, and you went, I don't know, can I have something else? And I said, how dare you?
I don't. It's too smoky for me. I don't have a palate for it.
Yeah. When you grow up, you'll have an opportunity.
But a lot of the good news is a lot of people do.
Listen.
How's the company going?
It's gangbusters.
Really?
Aaron, Paul, and I started this 3.5 years ago, and we were I think there's 125 or 26 different mezcal brands in the world, and we were right there with them. 3.5 years later, we're now number 4.
Wow.
And we have our eyes set on being number 1. It's a nice, lofty goal for us.
We should say the name of the brand.
Dos Hombres.
A shameless plug.
Dos Hombres Mezcal.
And what I like
delicious.
about your origin story, as they say, is that you didn't kind of just slap your name on a bottle.
No.
You actually did the work. You all went to Mexico. You went on, a journey to find the best mezcal. I think I said it wrong. Mezcal. It's producers. and you did the work.
Yeah. That's the only way that I wanted to do it. Aaron and I have the same work ethic. We come from blue-collar families, and we don't really know any other way but just keep your head down and do the work, put in the hours. And whether it's mezcal or your own acting career, if you don't put in the hours and put in the work, you're not going to be successful. That's a guarantee. So we went down to Oaxaca, Mexico, and we sampled almost 100 different mezcals that didn't have brands connected to them. And we had very different palates. I have I tease him, I have a sophisticated palate, and he has kind of a brown paper bag in the parking lot palate.
According to you, I guess.
Yeah, according to me, exactly. But he loves a strong scotch. He loves a burning sensation. I'm not that way.
You're a smooth, mellow scotch guy.
I want a smooth. I want to be introduced and seduced into my spirits. And so we had to find that spirit in the middle that appeal to both of our palates. And Dos Hombres, what became Dos Hombres, was it. It is strong enough to blend with any fruit juices or soda water or whatever you like. And it's perfect by itself. It's really a fantastic. We're tremendously proud of it and excited about it.
So you're having a lot of fun with that, right? I mean,
we're the Dos Hombres.
Yeah,
we're.
How much of your time is devoted to working on that brand? And
it's a little. I would say honestly, it's a little over a part-time job. It's about 25 hours a week or so, like that. Both of us.
And what about theater? I loved All the Way. I also saw you in Network. We went to see you at a play in Los Angeles that I thought was wonderful, written by, I think, someone who works with my daughter on a show called The Boys.
Right.
Right.
Paul Grelon.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously you love the theater.
Mm-hmm.
And do you have any plans to revisit something, or why are you looking at me like that?
I do, because it's one other thing that I can't really talk about, but I'm developing something, and I know you're going to want me to I can't
Can you
spill.
give me a little bit of a hint?
Yeah, it's going to be a Broadway play.
Oh, well, that's good. That's exciting.
It's very exciting. I have a couple more hurdles to go to before it actually gets into an actual reality of casting and these things, but and it's something that is a bit beyond. It's going to be a musical, and I'm not. I'm an actor that can carry a tune, but I'm not a singer.
But it's original. It's not a remake.
No, it is a revival.
A revival.
Yes. Well, I'll tell you this: as soon as I know and I've gotten the green light when to do it, I'll come and I'll mention it to you first.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll get a scoop here on next question, because I know you decided not to direct The Foreigner, which became a big deal in terms of the theater. Can you talk about your decision? Talk about what precipitated that whole thing.
Yes. In Los Angeles, the Geffen Theater was celebrating its 25th anniversary, and they asked me, because I had done a play there before, if I wanted to be in a play or direct a play. And I thought, oh, direct a play. I've never directed a play. I've directed scenes before, and I've directed a movie before and television, but I'd like to see if I'm any good at this. So, and I remember back in 1983 in New York, I saw a play by the late playwright Larry Shue called The Foreigner, and laughed my butt off with a bunch of friends, and we just thought it was the funniest thing, and also had a social impact to it at the time. But I realized after prepping it and getting ready to do it that here we have the murder of George Floyd and the Me Too movement and Black Lives Matter was really happening, and I had to stop for a second and look at this again, and I realized that my white privilege didn't allow me to see beyond what I was and how I was raised. And I had to come to terms with that and realize, laughing at the stupidity and broken ideology of the KKK was funny to me in '83 because I abhor that point of view, and I can laugh at them and try to make fun of them. But that life, that reality, and what happened in Charlottesville, and they're still dealing with that. And I personally wasn't affected by white supremacy in the negative way, and I'm, as if there's a positive way. But I realized, I really have blind spots that my white privilege is not allowing me to see, and I really had to physically go in there and feel like I'm taking down the blinders off of it and looking from a whole different perspective. It's not funny to African Americans. It's not funny to Jewish Americans. It's not funny we're living in that world still. And I said, I not only should I not direct, I don't think this should be done. This is not appropriate. And we have evolved. And I'm grateful for that. I'm glad that as a society we've come to the point where we can actually look at that and go, this is an inappropriate play to produce now. And
it
so
didn't
that
age
was
well.
It didn't. No.
Speaking of stuff that hasn't aged well, it's so interesting, and I'm grateful too that we have had our eyes opened and that we've had numerous reckonings, whether with gender, race. Obviously, we've got a while to go, and it's been turned into a culture war. But someone sent John a video of Norm Macdonald 10 years ago at some award show, trotting out a Native American man to talk about this event, and it was sort of a riff on the Marlon Brando. Mm-hmm. Incident from many years ago.
Yeah.
And it was so interesting because as I said, it was about a decade ago, and everyone in the audience is laughing hysterically, and it's so cringy.
Yeah.
And Jon Stewart's laughing. I think John Oliver's laughing. And John and I said, wow, this was okay just a decade ago.
Yeah. Well, do you remember, and I have this, I could say this because I look like him now. Remember Foster Brooks?
I don't.
There was a comedian named Foster Brooks whose whole act was to act drunk. And he would go on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. He would talk like this, and he'd slur his words, and everybody's laughing, and it's things, we grow up, and there are some things like that you go, oh, I'm so glad that is not appropriate anymore. You know, when I was in elementary school, I had a classmate who lost 3 siblings in a traffic accident. A car ran into them, jumped the sidewalk and ran into them, and killed 3 of his siblings. And I remember I was probably 9 or 10, and I remember the news saying, what a terrible accident. The driver had been drinking and was intoxicated. Such a horrible, horrible accident. So sad that this happened, but that's what happened, and it could have happened to any of us. And now the sports, and it's like, and I'm thinking, but did it have to happen? And that was back when, oh yeah, it's just an accident. Drinking while you're drunk, could happen to anybody. And it's like, no, let's mature and let's accept responsibility. And again, getting back to personal decision making.
So you've got to go because you've got a heart out, and I don't want you to miss your flight. But how old are you, Bryan Cranston?
I'm 102.
No, you're not. I think you're are we the same age?
I'm 66.
Okay, and I'm almost 66. And it's so great to see you, like, doing your thing, taking on new challenges, and, and not going quietly into this good night. It's nice do you ever want to retire? Do you ever want to take it easy? Personally, I don't, because I think I would shrivel up and die if I didn't work.
I would. My mother, God bless her, she had Alzheimer's, and she died of Alzheimer's about 15 years ago now. And so the possibility of that in a hereditary sense is there. And I often said, as long as I'm enjoying and having fun, I will continue to work. If I don't want to struggle to remember lines. I don't want to be nervous and anxious about any of that. If it comes to that, then I would retire immediately. I am not going to be the person on stage with an earpiece being fed his lines, and then I just hear it and repeat it, hear it, repeat it.
That sounds pretty good to me.
No, God. That itself puts more anxiety-inducing thoughts in my head than memorizing. That's part of it. But if I ever lose the joy of performing, then I'll retire right away.
But so far,
no, I love it. What a gift! I have to constantly say, I can't believe what I get to do. This is just unbelievable that I get to play. I get to play for a living, and so when Monday comes around, I'm excited because I get to go back to work and play. It's just the best. So,
what a great way to live.
Yeah, it is. I've been very fortunate.
Thank you, Bryan.
Thank you, Katie.